Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's talk about the National Urban League State of Black America report and how they have identified that there are some big factors that have threatened democracy for Black Americans. We'll have that conversation. Also, we're going to talk about legendary and iconic actor Morgan Freeman, who had some very, very interesting things to say about Black History Month and the title of African American. We'll have that discussion. Plus, today is Monday. We're going to be checking in with Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness and a whole lot more. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Woo! All right, folks, happy Monday, and happy Monday. Welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we're streaming live right now on all social media platforms, including YouTube and Facebook, and of course on Amazon News, and of course on our website at blackstarnetwork.com. So make sure y'all tune in for all of those platforms and let your friends and family know that we are broadcasting live today. All right, folks, the first conversation that we got is something about the annual report that is sent out by the National Urban Leagues, one of the country's most revered and oldest civil rights organizations. They put out a report to share with us some of the insights of what they're seeing on the landscape as it relates to the health, the education, the socio-economic condition of Black people in this country, and of course the political condition of Black people in this country. And this year's report highlights some of the big factors that have threatened democracy for Black folks in the country. So I want to share with you a little bit of what the report has to say. And then we're going to, of course, bring in one of our top contributors, Dr. Jason Nichols from the University of Maryland, to share his insight. But of course, no conversation is complete without you, folks. So make sure y'all get ready to join us in the discussion. Post your comments on YouTube and Facebook. And we'll do as much as we can, as best as we can, to get to your thoughts. All right, let me just share with you first and foremost what came out of the National Urban League's State of Black America report. Take a look at this here, folks. They're saying that extreme views have adopted by some local, state, and federal political leaders who try to limit what history can be taught in schools and seek to undermine how Black officials perform their jobs are among the top threats to democracy for Black Americans. Now, this is according to the National Urban League. According to its president, President Mark Morial, he said, we have censorship and Black history suppression. And now this, he said, it's another piece of fruit of the same poisonous tree, the effort to suppress and contain, talking about the situation in Tennessee. He said other issues in the group's report address extremism in the military and law enforcement, energy and climate change, and how current attitudes can affect public policy. Predominantly white legislatures in Missouri and Mississippi, and we can even probably include Tennessee, folks, have proposals that would shift certain government authority from some majority Black cities to the states. Just a little bit of what is laid out in the State of Black America report. And folks, I want y'all to definitely check it out from the National Urban League. You can go to their website and get a copy of the report, but it always examines what's going on in Black America. All right, let me check in with my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, giving us his insight about this report. Doc, good to talk to you, big brother. How are you, sir? Oh, wait a minute, we got you on mute, Doc. We got you on mute, bro.
I said I'm doing wonderful. I'm blessed. I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here on the culture.
Oh, absolutely. Glad to have you. Glad to have you. All right, bro. Talk to us. National Urban League, State of Black America. Do you agree with this assessment? I know that this is always a big report that comes out. They put it out, of course, annually. But do you agree with this fact that these are some big factors that threaten democracy for Black folks?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no question about it. We know that democracy is under threat for Black people. We see our elected officials being removed by people who seem to not like them or disagree with them, which is not democracy. That's not how democracy works. We see what's going on in terms of the lack of generational wealth in our communities and the inability to accrue it. We see food insecurity. We see health issues and health care and in health outcomes. So, pointing out the problems that we have in our society, we see our representatives being gerrymandered out of office to the point where what we saw in Florida, there's no more majority Black districts. So we're not being represented correctly. So I would even go farther than probably this report goes. But yes, the democracy is under threat if Black people's democracy is under threat. So, because an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So
absolutely, I would agree. Folks, I want you to join us in the discussion. Make sure you post your comments, and there it is, the copy of the report. Look at that, folks. Look at that right there, showing us that the ballot box, that our votes are going to shreds. Man, that is a bleak future, Dr. Jason. When I look at the reports and when you look at the landscape, one of the things is that I see oftentimes where they're showing us that, I don't know if it's a dark future, but it's more like a situation where it's like, you know what, we're in this place. Do you feel like, based upon everything that's happening, that we can really get out of this place that we're in? Because this report speaks volumes about the long-stemming systemic issues that have been plaguing our communities, not for 10, 20 years, 50, 60, 70 years.
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to, with anything that has accrued over time, you're not going to end it overnight. You know what I mean? So I certainly think that it's going to take a while for a lot of these things to be properly addressed and eradicated. But we've done this with other things in our community, and it always starts with us. It's not because somebody wants to come along and save us. That may be the historical narrative that they want to tell, and that's why they want to change, as the report states, the way we teach Black history and the way they teach history in this nation, and to ban conversations about racism. They want to make it seem like Black people were treated badly, but then, by nobody, by the way, it was nobody's fault. Nobody did anything. And then white folks came along and got a heart and decided to change it and erase the fact that it's Black people fighting for our own freedom that has always led the charge to change our society for Black people and for the world. If you go anywhere in the world, anywhere, I've been all over the world. And one of the things, if you have conversations with anybody about the model for freedom, they will mention the United States of America, and they will mention Black activists that fought for Black freedom.
Right.
So you're gonna hear about Dr. King. You're gonna hear about the people who who fought against slavery. The Frederick Douglasses of the world and the Harriet Tubmans of the world, and you're going to hear about the modern civil rights movement. So it's going to take a lot of fighting on our part.
Yeah.
We can't pretend that things will just correct themselves. And part of that is going to be at the ballot box, and part of that is going to be at some of these school board meetings. We saw those white folks show up for that school board as soon as you said this might make kids feel bad. None of them had an experience with their own kids. They just heard that this was what it might do. And they showed up and they showed out. We got to do that for our kids. We got to demand certain things for our children at the school board meetings. We got to demand those things from our elected officials, or else we're going to be in this position for even longer.
Absolutely. Folks, join us in the discussion as we check in with Dr. Jason Nichols. Here's a couple of things. One is, folks, we are actually doing another live stream with around this issue where Bishop Barber, William Barber, is holding a Moral Monday event in Tennessee. He's going on that right now. So that is happening. But these type of events, and I love the Moral Mondays events. I love the work that Reverend William Barber is doing, because I think it speaks to the direction. I mean, he's of course kept that going from the great Dr. Martin Luther King, but it speaks to the level of organizing, the level of consistency that is required to address this situation. And I think that is the important part of this whole process, is that we have to be consistent, bro, to if we're serious about eradicating some of these big issues, we have to be consistent. We often say, and this is something I hear often, and I'm sure you do too, you can't just show up when it's election time. We say that to the politicians, but I think there's a segment of the community, Doc, where we show up when it's election time. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get ultra political when it's election season, but then on those awful years, we stay quiet. We're just trying to do, we're not involved as much. And how do we change that dynamic? Because I think that's a huge part of it.
So let me actually even add to that a little bit more. One of the things that really troubled me in the 2020 election was a lot of times what I saw from, for example, Brother Charlemagne, the God, right?
Right.
He had all of the, Democratic nominees for president during that election cycle on his various platforms and various shows. And he asked them a question that a lot of Black people wanted to hear. And that was, what are you going to do for Black people?
Right.
That was like his question. I have a problem with that question. And the reason is because why are we waiting for them to tell us what they're going to do for us? Why aren't we saying, this is what we want? These are the items of our agenda. How many of these items are you going to commit to? Don't let them tell you, well, how about this? How about that? You know what I mean? You tell them what you need and what you want. And I think a lot of times we are in this kind of reactive state where it's like, you give us what you want. We want to know what you're going to give us, instead of just saying, hey, these are the things that we want. We are an organized community. These are the things that we desire. How many of these agenda items? We have a 15-point agenda. How many of these agenda items are you going to take? And one person might be like, well, I'll take 9. I'll commit to 9. And one person may say, I'll commit to 11. And then somebody else might say, I'll commit to 13. The person who commits to 13 gets the vote.
Hey, look, I'm going to stop you right there because we got to take a quick pause. I want to speak to that. I want us to talk about that, because the energy for waiting for someone versus, and like you said, being reactive versus the energy to be proactive, two different energies. Two different energies, Brother Jason. Man, I'm so happy that you brought that up. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we'll continue the conversation with Dr. Jason Nichols. I want to hear from you. Post your comments on our YouTube and Facebook chat, and stay with us as we're broadcasting live on Black Star Network and, of course, on Amazon News. You're tuned into The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20036-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Welcome to the Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking about the National Urban League State of Black America report. And Keenan, let's show that clip. Yep, there we go. Under Siege, folks, talking about some of the big factors that have affected democracy for Black people in this country. And as you can go to the website, the National Urban League's website, to see, take a look at what has been highlighted in this report. And this is a report that's put out annually by the Civil Rights Organization to give us a snapshot of some of the big challenges and, of course, some recommendations on what we can do to address these issues. But as you can see from the cover all throughout, and it's a beautiful report, but it also speaks to the areas that we need to focus on. And I'm so happy that, you know, we can have a conversation about the state of Black America on a regular basis as it relates to this report. My brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, checking in as he does every Monday here on The Culture, made a huge point. Folks, I want to bring my brother in. You made a huge point. There is a difference of energy. There's a difference of intention between waiting for someone to do something for you, which is reactionary, as you mentioned, and I totally agree, versus being proactive and identifying those things that you need done. Because as we know, as the saying goes, those who are closest to the problem are the ones who are most qualified and closest to the solution. So when we look at asking people, hey, why don't y'all do what you going to do for Black people, versus saying, hey, you don't live in my neighborhood. You don't live in my community. You don't live in my jurisdiction, my district. You don't live in my state, because you're going to take a broad swath. I remember being in community organizing, and one of the big things that I was taught is you cannot go into any community and assume that you know what the people need in that community. You can take a brief overglance. You can just drive through the neighborhoods. But the one thing, if you want to completely start off on the wrong foot in community organizing, go into somebody's neighborhood and tell them what they need versus listening to them and hearing what they want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You know, I think one of the things, though, we are so accustomed, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but we are so accustomed to getting what our government in particular at all levels is willing to give us instead of demanding things. There are times where we demand things. Absolutely. I think we demanded an end to slavery, despite what, you know, a lot of the fake historians will say. You know, the people who fought to end slavery were Black.
Right.
You know, that's what people don't realize. Almost 200,000 Black men signed up for the Union Army, not because they wanted to reunite the Union, because they wanted to end slavery. So when you tell me who fought to end slavery, it was Black people, it was Black men, and it was Black women and children who served as spies and scouts. Black people can proactive many times. But I think sometimes we get so accustomed to, okay, what are you willing to give us? You know, rather than this is what I demand. Think of it, you know, almost like, and you and I, we talked about doing a relationship kind of podcast.
Right.
Kind of like a relationship. We Black people, we are in a relationship with the larger society here in the United States.
Yep.
And we could be like, so, you know, what are you going to do for us? How are you going to treat us in a relationship? Or we could have standards and say, look, this is what I demand from my partner.
Right.
I demand this. I demand that. I demand to be treated well. And I think that we as a community who's in a relationship with the larger American society, we need to start making some demands and saying, look, are you willing to cooperate, particularly to our elected officials at all levels, including Black ones, including your mayor, your city councilmen, your aldermen, certainly going all the way up to your congressman, your senator, and of course, your president. But those off-year elections are important. We want accountability, something we screamed a lot about. We want accountability from our police. Did you know that your sheriff is an elected position? Did you know that your DA is an elected position? Those are places where we can make a difference. And one of the things we're seeing from the right, going back to that report, is that they are literally trying to remove DAs who are trying to hold people accountable, who are trying to look past shoplifting and not looking at it as a crime that's punishable with incarceration, separating families, separating mothers from children for shoplifting because they didn't have, looking for alternatives to that. They are removing those DAs that you voted for. So we need to be proactive. And when we are proactive, we need to make sure that our rights and our votes are respected.
Absolutely. 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 And Keenan, we want to show the cover. There it is, the cover for this year's report. So big shout out to Black Television and News for calling out the correction. So thank you so much. This is the official cover for the brand new report of the State of Black America report put out by the Urban League. As you can see, it says confronting the threat within 2023, talking about democracy in peril. Yes, it is. And of course, that's the state, that's the capital under fire. Powerful, powerful image of where we are. Let me go to some of our culture crew members to hear what they got to say around this issue. And folks, continue to post your thoughts as we go. Tiana, you said this report is not a surprise to me. It's more of an alarm for folks to get ready because some BS is about to go down. Absolutely. I agree with you, Tiana. Thank you for checking in. Harry Williams, Harry, thank you for checking in. You say, why we don't show up at school board meetings? Honest answer, no bull, please. Because there's so many other factors on this, man. Harry, you know it and I know it. If we can say we value these things, and we do. I believe we really do. But when you have, single parent households, when you got to work jobs, some of this stuff doesn't get on the top of your priorities of the list of things to do. So it's not just, it's getting involved. And I think many of us, and Dr. Jason, I think many Black people would love to get involved, but we got to think about the day-to-day. We got to think about the week-to-week. We got to think about covering down from the children to the jobs to the keeping the family afloat. Getting involved is an extracurricular activity unless you built your life around this. You know what I'm saying? So we also got to kind of penetrate through the culture of all of that as well, bro.
Yeah, and Farajii, I again, because this is the culture and I feel like I'm home here, I'm a wipe my feet on the rug, and then I'm gonna take my shoes off, but I'm gonna plop down on the couch and put my feet up and really speak the truth, what I believe the truth to be. I think it's very important to show up at these school board meetings. Sometimes show up at your city council meeting because your opposition is doing it, and we've seen that. At the same time, I think part of it, like with the whole so-called critical race theory thing, I think one of the problems is that we are depending on the state to fully educate our children instead of, in some cases, putting the responsibility in our own hands. And when I say that, I look at, and a friend of mine, he and I, we were trying to start this. He's a Jewish guy, Jewish brother. We were trying to start this in our community, and it didn't take because for a multitude of factors. But I'll just let you know, we looked at the fact that you look at Hebrew school. Our Jewish brothers and sisters, they have Hebrew school on the weekends, on Saturday. They get an extra day of learning, and they learn about their culture. They get together and they learn about their culture. And it's a beautiful thing where they get an extra day of learning and time to be with other people of their culture and to learn about their culture. Right. I think Black people need to do that. We got a church on every corner in the hood. Why can't they give us space on a Saturday? And young people and people from the colleges and professors like me and Black studies go in and give our kids the same thing. Why are we dependent on the state, who we know miseducates our kids, to educate them on their own history? As a matter of fact, Malcolm X used to say that a person who trusts, I'm saying this incorrect, I know I'm butchering it now, only a fool would allow his enemy to educate his children. That's what it is. So why are we depending on the state that we know put us in the position that's in that report to fully educate our children? Why aren't we in all the churches and all that given space and people volunteering to teach Black history lessons? These are things that I think we need to take ownership of, that in the past we've done. Right. That's what SNCC did. They had their freedom schools. That's what the Black Panther Party did when they had their liberation schools. Why can't we do that now? Why are we so dependent on the state? That doesn't mean that you don't make it two-pronged, because white kids need to learn Black history too.
Come on.
So we need to actually be at those school boards and talk about the importance. But we also need to do for self. And I think we have the infrastructure in our community. We don't have wealth, but we
don't need wealth.
Yeah, there's certain things you don't need wealth for.
Bro, I've learned that.
Yeah.
I think that's a cop out. We got like 30 seconds, but I think the point that you're making is absolutely valid. We don't need wealth. All it takes is for people to come together and to use the resources that's already available. Right. And let me just say this. Like in a lot of cities, and I'm talking about your major cities, especially areas where Black folks reside, we got two things. We probably got one or two big institutions: a school, a church, and possibly a library. So you don't need money, quote unquote, because if the community that you're a part of, and the other thing is that something that we definitely don't tap into, because I know this: community associations, organized community members, residents who sit on these associations, who are the liaisons for the community when it comes to local government, to the mayor, to the city council person, or to your wardsman or alderman. Those are the resources. We don't need you people think we need this influx of money. Look, man, our people have made tremendous and significant strides with little to no budget. Right. Absolutely. So you mean to tell me in 2023, as technologically advanced as we are, as conscious as we have become, as knowledgeable that we are, that we couldn't create, like you said, a freedom school? We couldn't set up a Saturday class. We couldn't come together and create an alternative situation, an alternative history or culturally relevant and oriented after-school program. That doesn't make sense to me. Right. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. And I'll just say, anybody in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, reach out to me. If you want to set this up and you want guest lecturers, you want university professors to come in and teach your children.
Come on, bro.
We'll do it. We'll do. We live for this stuff.
Hey, look. And let me tell y'all, Dr. Jason Nichols can charge a pretty penny.
Hey. But I won't charge y'all.
See, that's what I'm saying, bro. That's the resource. That's the resource. Look, when I go to certain places, They be like, can we? I'm like, man, you don't got to pay me for nothing, man. This is what I do, man.
Right.
Like, I'm not no carpetbagger. I come into the neighborhood. I try to help. I try to offer. Like, I don't charge people for giving you some good information.
Right.
I mean, what does that look like? I'm charging the hell out of my own people. And then when I get it, oh man, that's crazy. I'll
say this. If you have a budget, offer somebody something. But if you don't have a budget, if you're in West Baltimore and you got, you just got a couple kids together and got a space, you don't have to pay me anything.
Don't have to pay me nothing. Don't have to pay me nothing, brother. And I think that's an excellent point. Look, I got to take this quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue to talk about it. Folks are still checking in as we talk about the State of Black America report. We want to talk about that. And I'm going to throw it in the mix. Let's throw in the mix to something because as we talk about the State of Black America, Morgan Freeman just recently did a rare interview about his ideology around Black History Month and being called African American. I'm going to throw that in the mix as well. So stay with us. A lot to cover in this final few minutes of our first hour of the culture here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about the State of Black America. This is the annual report that's put out by the National Urban League and sharing what folks have to say about where we are in this country, how, according to this report, democracy is in peril for Black Americans. And again, folks, I would highly advise that you check out this report as it speaks to a number of issues that we're all facing, that we discuss on this show, on Brother Roland's show, and other shows on this platform. And it speaks volumes about where we are and how far we still have to go, the great work that we still have to go. I've been checking in with my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols from the University of Maryland, as he's a lecturer out of the African American Studies Department there, as we had this conversation. Let me throw this in the mix, and then I'm going to throw something else in the mix around talking about your guy, Morgan Freeman, Doc. We're going to throw that in the mix. But here's something else that the report mentioned. Let's go to quote number 2 on this. The report mentioned that in many ways, the report mirrors concerns evident in recent years in a country deeply divided over everything from how much K through 12 students should be taught about racism and sexuality to the legitimacy of the 2020 election. 40% of voters in last year's election said their local K-12 public schools were not teaching enough about racism in the United States, while 34% said it already was too much. Now, this is according to Associated Press and Votecast, an expansive survey of the American electorate. 23% said the current curriculum was about right. About 2/3 of Black voters said more should be taught on the subject, compared with about half of Latino voters and about 1/3 of white voters. Violence is one of the major areas of concern covered in the Urban League's report, especially in light of the 2022 mass shooting at a grocery store in Buffalo, New York. And data released this year by the FBI indicated that hate crimes rose between 2020 and 2021. African Americans were disproportionately represented, accounted for 30% of the incidents in which the bias was known. So, Doc, we still got a lot to kind of work through when you're talking about everything from violence. You're talking about speaking on racism. We're still talking about the big lie of the 2020 election. We're still dealing with issues of gender and sexuality in schools. These are all these are just coming at Black America right now. And I think for a lot of Black folks, man, we got so many things hitting us at the same time. And this is on a national collective front. That's not even counting what's happening with us in our personal lives, with our family and friends, and the stuff that we may be involved in, or our professional lives. I mean, it's just going to keep our heads spinning, bro.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, all of these things are incredibly dangerous, particularly, the hate crime issue. I think there was a lot of talk about some of the hate crimes that happen to other ethnicities, and rightfully so. But there's still, Black people still lead the pack, in people where hate crimes and hate incidents, which, by the way, are two different things, happen oftentimes to Black people.
Right.
And so we certainly need to be aware. We certainly need to take whatever precautions that we can take, and recognize that people need to be held accountable when they're involved in these kinds of activities. So, these things are really dangerous that are happening, particularly with, like I said, the hate crimes, the big lie, all of these things, and we need to take them into account.
And here's the thing about this. Here's the thing about this, bro. This is the thing. As much as all of this is happening, there are still some folks in the community that want to talk about the semantics, the labels. Morgan Freeman, we talked about Idris Elba some time ago, how he said he doesn't refer to himself as a Black actor. Nia Long says she's Black famous. So in the midst of all of this other social issues, we're still trying to figure out who the hell we are when it comes to how we see ourselves and how we want to present ourselves to the world. This is what Morgan Freeman talked about. He did an interview for an upcoming film that he's in. But one of the things he said in the interview, and of course, Morgan Freeman, as we know, he's like iconic, legendary, done many films. He's always the voice of God. If anybody ever notices that, Morgan Freeman also always plays God in some way, shape, or form. So that speaks volumes. But this is what he said. He said, Black History Month, take a look at this. This is what he did with the Times. He said, Black History Month is an insult. You're going to relegate my history to a month? He said, also, African Americans is an insult. He said, I don't subscribe to that title. Black people have had different titles all the way back to the N-word, and I do not know how these things get such a grip, but everyone uses African American. What does it really mean? Most Black people in this part of the world are mongrels, and you say Africa as if it's a country when it's a continent like Europe. Is this a necessary conversation, though?
So, the part about Black History Month, he's right. The fact that in a perfect world, we wouldn't need a Black History Month, but we don't live in a perfect world. We live in the United States of America in 2023. And I can tell you, even when it's just a month, from the students' knowledge, that I observe, they don't get taught a whole lot about it in that 1 month.
Right.
Well, they get taught the same thing over and over for 12 years of their high school careers. And so when I ask my students, I ask them questions like, who was Ella Baker? And they don't know because they aren't really taught a whole lot of Black history and the like. So this idea that we should get rid of Black History Month is ridiculous. Now, I agree. We should have Black history every month, but we don't even do it in the 1 month. So I think right for the time being, we still need Black History Month. And we know from that report that we were referencing earlier, they're trying to get rid of the little parts of that,
right,
of what we already have. Now, first of all, I would not trust, even though he's the voice of God, let's remember, God was still driving Miss Daisy. If you remember correct,
Wow. Why you gotta say it like that, bro?
I'm just saying, you know what I mean? He was still servicing a white lady. But let me just say, first of all, don't trust anybody who talks about race but calls human beings mongrels. Like that was kind of scary altogether. You know what I mean? Like, you don't call human beings mongrels. That's not an acceptable term. Might as well call them the N-word. Now, as far as African American is an ethno-national identity, the way it was originally conceived, it was supposed to be the descendants of enslaved Africans here in the United States. So we don't have a country like an Italian American does, because we are a hybrid of African cultures. That was stolen from us, number one, from our ancestors, and we're a hybrid of different African cultures at this point. So we can't say I'm a Bantu American, or I'm a Hausa American, or I'm an Akan American. We can't say that. So what do we know? We know the region we're from. We know we're from Western Africa. And so we are African, and we also know that we fought for this country in every military conflict this country has ever had. We have earned our citizenship more than any other group around. So we are African Americans,
But
now,
I gotta take a quick pause. But here's the thing: is it necessary for us to have this conversation? And I'm just saying, in light of the big picture, right? Because I've been in the spaces where we want to go back and forth. I've been on social media. I've been in real life, and I'm like, at this point, considering everything else we got going on, all of the challenges that we're facing, can't we just accept the fact that we're dark-skinned Black people in this country that are catching hell as a result of white supremacy? Or do we got to go into, no, I'm not dark-skinned. I'm more of a granite color. You know what I mean? So it's like, what are you doing? This is like splitting hairs in semantics. So look, we're going to continue the conversation. We got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more from Dr. Jason Nichols. I want to hear from you folks. What's your take on Morgan Freeman? What's your take on where we are in the state of Black America? Let's continue the discussion here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Table with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about the state of Black America coming out from the National Urban League. We also been talking about Morgan Freeman and some of the remarks that he said about Black History Month, how he doesn't believe that his history and our history can be relegated to a month. Facts, I believe that. But then he came out with another statement saying that Black folks, he doesn't accept the term of African American, that Black people are mongrels. These are his words, not mine. He said we have different titles all the way back to the N-word, and I do not know how these things get such a grip, but everyone uses African American. What does it really mean? Most Black people in this part of the world are mongrels, and you say Africa as if it's a country when it's a continent like Europe. We've been checking in with my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols. Let me just go to the crew, Doc. Hear what folks got to say, because a lot of people are checking in, and a big shout out to all of our new watchers here on the Black Star Network. People are not happy with Morgan Freeman, pretty much saying he needs to shut the hell up. Damn. Cheryl, you checked in and said, nope, Freeman has always been a joke. He needs to take several seats. It's from Cheryl W. Wow. Chris Big, you checked in, bro. You said what we have in common is our unique American experience, and we can literally export that to Africa with our HBCUs. Interesting. Cheryl W said, then he should keep his mouth shut and only talk about acting in his roles. I'm not an ageist either, but his age speaks volumes because he's out of step. Wow. Danita, you checked in. You said we are the only nationality that will answer the question with American at the end. When you ask others what their nationality, they simply say Mexican, Italian, etc. That's an interesting point. Interesting point. But is it because maybe we built this damn country? I mean, first thing, I get what y'all saying. I get you. I get you, Danita. Trust and believe, I get you. But there would be no America if it wasn't for us.
Yeah.
So we gotta carry that, right? Do we carry that, Doc? Do we embrace that? Because I do know. I often call myself Black. I just say I'm a Black man, right? But I do understand that at the same time, and of course, black is not a country, black is not a continent, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's like, aren't we from America? I mean, didn't we build this country? Didn't we make this country the superpower that it is? Don't we own this part of the country, whether it's through history, whether it's culturally?
Yeah. No, you know, it's interesting. I call myself all of that. I say I'm black, but I recognize that being black, you can be black and be from Ghana. You can be black and be from Jamaica. You can be black and be from Great Britain. And when I say black, a lot of times when I say I'm black, that's to connect with all of those people and say we all have something in common. We're all black. So I recognize that. I also, you know, sometimes just call myself an African. You know, there's a statement that some Puerto Rican people say, where they say, you know, it's in Spanish, but I'll say it in English, where it's like, I would be Puerto Rican if I lived on the moon. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter that I'm from New York and I never been to Puerto Rico. I'm still Puerto Rican. I'm just as Puerto Rican as anybody else. I feel that way about Africa. You know, I'm as African as any African person. You know, I'm just because I was born in the United States doesn't make me any less African. And I also recognize my ethno-national identity as African American.
Right.
You know, just like, and you know, he said, oh, well, Africa, we say it like it's a country, it's not a continent. Ask my Asian American friends. They recognize Asia as a continent.
Right.
But because they're trying to connect with other Asian Americans, and they recognize that they're perceived oftentimes the same way, even if they are from different countries, they call themselves Asian Americans because they also want you to recognize that they are part of the American fabric. You can't make them perpetual foreigners. So I feel the same way. I'm an African American. I connect with other African people. Some are, you know, and I connect with other American people for better or worse. So I'm both, as W.E.B. Du Bois tried to explain through his double consciousness.
Right.
He wanted us to be able to be Africans and be Americans. So guess what? I'm an African American.
Right. And I think that speaks volumes about where we are. My thing is, going back to my point though, in the big scheme of things, in the great liberation movement of black folks and African people in this country, and in the struggle, does it make a difference?
Yeah, no, I don't think it does. Well, so that's a tricky, complicated question.
Okay. Okay, I'm throwing up. Go ahead. All right. That's how I do on Mondays. Tricky, complicated questions.
I think like the fact that we can call ourselves black and connect with other black people, that's what Pan-Africanism is all about. And you know, other African people, we can connect with them all over the globe and see and be in solidarity in our fight for freedom and our fight for respect. I think that's really important. So I think that that's an important identity, you know, in terms of Pan-Africanism and to be able to support one another. I think it is also, there is some importance to us recognizing, as you said, we built this country. You cannot have this country without us. You can't say, well, then go to Africa if you're an African. No, I'm an African American. You cannot take everything in this country away from me or anything in this country away from me. I am as American as the soil itself. So I think it's important for us to also acknowledge that. So I think these terms do have some importance.
They got some importance, but you know, and somebody brought it up, and I didn't hear her say this, but I think it's interesting that a lot of times when they're talking about progress being made in this country, black folks seem to be very quiet about how much of impact we make on progress in this country, whereas other people seem to be very loud about it. Sandy, you pointed out, you said, I remember when Eva Longoria said the election was won by the grit of Latino women, she had to apologize. Dr. Jason, in the final minute or so we got, how come black folks, we don't boast? It's like this undercover thing. Even when we talk about Joe Biden's election, right? Like he had to say it in a public way. like, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. But it's not a part of the culture for us to boast. Like, even though, and I say this, and I'm saying this with all due sincerity and no shade to any group of people, the reason that we are seeing progress in this country is because of the struggle of Black people.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't, well, let's own this. Like, I don't care whether you're talking about a group of people, Latinos, Asian American, where you're talking about a segment of the population, LGBTQ. Nobody had to go and set the path for civil rights, for human rights, and had to go under the trials and the fire of trying to establish human rights if it was not for Black people in this country. This isn't racism. This is just facts. We had to go through that. We had to go through all of the mess to cut through all of the bullshit in order for other people to walk down the clear path. And it seems like we can't say that.
I say it. I say it all the time. I think Black people in America, African Americans, or whatever term that you choose to use, we have been the moral leaders for not just the United States, but the world over. Now, of course, there have been other freedom struggles around the world, and I'm not minimizing any of them. And I think part of that is because we are in the middle of empire, where, we are in the most powerful nation in the world, which would not be as powerful as it is without the genius, the efforts, and the labor of Black people. But when it comes to freedom and democracy as it exists, it was the efforts of Black people that made democracies whole and set the model around the world. So, and certainly for anybody who comes to this country, including some of our African brothers and sisters, respect us. Respect what we did for this,
right?
For your
right.
That my Latino brothers and sisters.
Come on, man.
Respect that. You know what I mean?
You got to respect that. Nobody has undergone, and I mean, look, this again, it's not racism as we close out. Nobody has undergone this level of this dehumanization like Black people. Mm-hmm. And we have laid the groundwork for other people to get progress and to make gains and have strides. We've done that. And I'm not saying that to be up on ourselves or some type of superiority complex. I'm just saying that to understand the path, there would be no civil rights. There's no human rights conversation without Black people in this country. You can't. You can't.
For sure.
The greatest human rights violation was the transatlantic slave trade. Debate me. Why? Because we're still feeling the residual effects of it to this very present moment. So we can't, and I'm not saying that to be like, oh, my pain is greater than yours. It's just an acknowledgement of the fact that at this point, Black people deserve some liberation. We deserve to be free, we deserve to have justice, and we deserve to be seen equal. That's all I'm gonna say on that piece. I'm sorry, Mr. Morgan Freeman. You're out of touch and out of time, sir. I'm so sorry. Dr. Jason, thank you so much, brother. It's always a pleasure to have you. Very quickly, what's the name of your podcast? How can people check in?
Oh, definitely check out my podcast, The Working Class Elites. Check out all the episodes. We got one, like I said, with my brother right there. That is amazing. We got some other episodes that you should check out. We're definitely going to have him back on so we can extend these conversations and continue to have them. So definitely check out The Working Class Elites. And also you can follow me on any social media that you choose. Dr. Jason Nichols on Twitter or Jason Nichols, PhD on Facebook.
There it is right there, my brother. Dr. Jason Nichols, always a pleasure to have you on. Y'all can check him out every Monday here on The Culture. And guess what? My brother he gives you free jewels, folks. Free jewels. So take it as he gives it. My brother, talk to you soon. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget, MD. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no
punch.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. It is Monday, so it's time for us to talk about health and well-being. It's time for us to reclaim your wellness with Dr. Bridget, MD. All right, good afternoon, Doc. How are you today?
Great. How are you, Farajii?
I'm good. I'm good. All right, we got a number of things that we need
Yes.
to talk about. So what's on the agenda? What are some of the big things that you want us to keep in mind as we talk about our health and wellness this week?
Absolutely. So there are a number of different things that came up during this week that we definitely wanted to talk about and cover. I want to really start with, we have to talk about Jamie Foxx, right? I think we're all kind of waiting and watching and trying to understand what's going on. And so the latest that we understand is that Jamie Foxx is on the mend right now after suffering some sort of medical complication. Now, when it first kind of hit the news, there was talk about stroke and there's talk about aneurysms. None of that has been confirmed as of yet. So I don't want to dig into something that might not be true.
Yeah.
What we understand is that his daughter revealed that he was revealed what happened as far as he had some sort of complication, that he's now on recovery state and interacting with people. So, we just keep him in our prayers for right now. And once we know more, I definitely would like to dig into that conversation.
Yeah. It's still not clear. And I don't know, Doc, if we're ever going to really know what has happened to him, because a lot of times when you're talking about a high profile individual, especially like a Jamie Foxx, you don't want to create a scare or some level of panic or great concern, especially if the family is trying to keep the whole situation manageable and more importantly private. So we may not know what happened, but I have heard that he has been his medical condition has been up and down over the years.
I see. Yeah, absolutely.
So it might be something that's come back from the past, or it could be something different. But I have definitely heard that he was, it wasn't just something that just popped up out of nowhere. That he'd been kind of dealing with some things for some time now.
Absolutely. I mean, it first came out that this was just an incident.
Right.
The hospital and other information said it was an emergency. And like I said, I hate to speculate and tie anything to him that is not true. But and they may decide to reveal something, or they may hold off. But whatever it may be, still in our prayers and hoping and praying for a great recovery.
Absolutely.
And so the other thing that I at least want to highlight, I love kind of going over any sort of observance month that might be going on, just to highlight something that might be of a concern to people, and they might be putting off or kind of ignoring, right? So we're in the midst of National Minority Health Month. And if you go to my Instagram page, I'll periodically post some information about that. But it is also Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And this might be very triggering for people. I at least want to mention that over half of women and almost 1 out of 3 men have experienced some sort of sexual, physical violence through their lifetimes. And so if you consider how prevalent that really is, I want to be careful in how we talk about it publicly and what we share. But I definitely don't want anyone to fall into a silo. I don't want anyone to feel unheard or unseen. And so what I recommend is the National Sexual Assault Telephone Hotline. 800-656-HOPE is someplace that you can call to discuss and share information that you might be experiencing, or if you know of someone else that might be being harmed. There's also the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. So that's nsvrc.org. And that is another location where you can gather more information. And we'll be talking about this a little bit more before the end of the month, but I at least want to highlight that because it is so prevalent and often so unseen that if this touches you in any way, definitely follow up on it.
So I wanted to kind of get you, I've been seeing some people, and especially some of our online culture crew members have talked about this, especially in light of what happened with the Dalai Lama situation. That there's still a lot of hesitancy, Doc, around having these very touchy, sensitive conversations, especially within our community. Last week when we talked about this with the Dalai Lama thing, it's still, as much as we were like, and I saw the kind of like the tone of the name of the discussion. It's easy for us to be like, yo, I'll whip someone's ass if they did such and so and thing to my children or to my niece or nephew or my grandchildren or anything like that. We get into that space of the conversation, but I think there's another space of the discussion about, how do we create a safe space for victims to even speak up, right? Because that's the harder part, right? I think that's one thing. And then, there are some people in our community who are saying like, well, do we just toss the offenders out, for lack of a better word? Do we just
like cancel them?
Or, because some of these offenders may be in our family.
Absolutely.
And they say like, yes, I advocated, you need to say something. You can't allow a cancerous situation like this to fester in the family. But then I thought about it, it's like, okay, well, we need some other ways. So what are some of the things that we need to do? Like to make this to get some justice for those who have suffered from this, but then also to recognize that some of the offenders may have been the victims before.
Yes.
So it's like this ongoing vicious cycle, and it's easy to be like, all right, cancel them, but then it's like, if they've been offended as well, how does that resolve? I hope I'm trying to speak to the complexities of all of this.
Absolutely. So I don't necessarily believe in cancel culture because I think it just festers more problems.
Right.
I do believe in people that have experienced some sort of assault to not only talk about it, but continue to talk about it, because I guarantee you that they are not the only one. Okay. And not to be at all empathetic to the offender, but the majority of times the offender has been a victim themselves at some point. So the more that we talk and address the issue, I think many times in family, we, sweep this underneath the rug. We're in a different time now. You do not have to do that. There are resources, there are options, and healing is something that you should be pursuing. And when we do have that, so first of all, as far as like canceling that family member, we do need to have a protective, safe place for not only the victim, but for everyone, because it is trauma for everyone. when this comes out. And so I think that's the problem, right? That people do not want to deal with this because it is not just trauma for the individual, it becomes trauma for everybody in that family, everybody that's involved and has touched this in some way. So I am very much focused on getting help for the offender because most of the time they have been a victim themselves and have hidden and have been shamed. And then because of the abuse that they've experienced, they end up abusing others. Get them help. Still be protective of everyone else. Don't get me wrong. But get that person help because that is how you end the cycle.
And that's a very hard pill to take when you're the victim of someone, right? That you'd be the victim of someone, but then you're also asked to be compassionate, to have some level of empathy for your abuser.
Well, I will be honest that it's a difficult place. And just being a family physician, I have been in a situation where we're seeing some of this behavior play out in very young kids. And they're like, oh, they're experimental. Oh, they're playing doctor. Most of the time, young kids that are way too young for that type of expression, it's because that child is being victimized by someone else. But usually we blow it off, we toss it out, we say, oh, stop doing that. And we have not seriously considered that that child is being abused by someone.
Right.
So, we're visualizing some older, adult that is doing this in some way or what have you. Let's start from the beginning. Usually that behavior that we have tossed out as being experimental is sometimes what is the first sign that we have that that person actually has been harmed. And so, yeah, I do want to have some compassion because if we think and start early, we might be able to avoid bigger issues as they become adults.
Absolutely. Folks, we want you to join us in a conversation talking to Dr. Bridget Williams, MD, who for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness segment, as we talk about National Sexual Assault Awareness Month that is happening right now. And this is also, Doc, is also Child Abuse Awareness Month as well. April carries a lot with it. Now you think about it, it's a lot that is happening. And I'm wondering, are we having enough conversations about this? This is almost, we're in the middle of the month at this point. And, unfortunately, I'm not seeing as much discussion about this versus other things. This is again, I get it. It's a touchy topic. When you're talking about child abuse, I mean, you almost feel powerless because, you're hearing about children in these spaces, in these homes or in these circumstances, and you feel like, you know what, I don't know what to do. And I understand why people just say resort to violence, right? But it's just not that clear cut. Especially, I worked for an organization in Maryland called CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates. And one of the jobs and the work that they did was, you would have a volunteer who would speak on the behalf of that child to try to speak up for that child in court and try to think of, the CASA would sit down as a volunteer with the court and with the family to try to figure out the best way that that child can get the resources they need, but more importantly, what's the best home for that child? Is it up for adoption, or is it for them to stay with their home? So this issue of child abuse is so multi-layered.
Yes.
Right. And more importantly, how we deal with child abuse, how we deal with that level of abuse is something. From your vantage point as a family physician, what's the best course of action if we're finding that there is child abuse within, either a friend's home, a family member's home, somebody in the community?
Yeah. So number one, nothing is a bigger gift to this person than to be seen and be heard and acknowledged. There's studies that show that when a adult, child, what have you, is ignored, not responded to, is given silence treatment, that in our brain, your brain interprets it the same way as if you're being physically hit. abuse. Okay. So you have taken someone that has already experienced a sexual assault, and now you are giving it's further abuse when you sweep it underneath the rug. So number one, acknowledge, see, and communicate. The more, it's an ugly truth, but if by the numbers itself, that ugly truth is horrific. It is everywhere. So how do we stop it? How do we, get out here and protect our family members and to protect our friends, and don't let the conversation drop because we're uncomfortable? So number one, I shared the information as far as, the 1-800-656-HOPE to call. I've shared the National Sexual Violence Resource Center to call as well. But a lot of my practice right now is that I work with foster kids, that I work not just with the foster child and the social worker, but the biological mom and the family as well. And many times sexual assault is involved in these cases. It does not go away if we don't communicate about it. And I work with the counselors and therapists and everyone involved that's trying to bring this back together. The one thing I would say is sometimes we move too quickly to put the child back in their original home, because that's where the child belongs, when they might be in a family member's home that is much more secure. And yes, children belong with their parents, but if whatever that environment is, I'm not saying that's happening within the home itself, but whatever that environment is, sometimes we move too quickly, and I think courts sometimes move too quickly to get them back home, where home is where they are safe. And safety might not be in their home of origin.
That is, and let me tell you, and that worked out 9 out of 10 times. This is the high statistic around this, that regardless of how abusive or violent a home is, folks, 9 out of 10 times the child wants to go back to their home because of familiarity than they do wanting to go into a new space. Even though that new space may be safer and better for them, that speaks volumes about how much of a pull and how much of an impact the home makes on a child, that they would rather go back to an abusive situation than to be placed in a new and possibly safer situation. So that means there's still a lot of work to be done. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we'll continue the segment, Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget, MD. We'll want to take your thoughts on a number of these health issues, on how we can make sure we can improve our health and wellness. And of course, we still got some more ground to cover with Dr. Bridget. So stay with us. You're tuned into The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We have been talking to Dr. Bridget, MD, Dr. Bridget Cole-Williams, MD, as we talk about reclaim your wellness. All right, let me get back to the good doctor because she got a lot more to talk about. Doc, let's talk about this new report about endometriosis. What's the word around this right now?
Yes.
And for those who don't know what that is all about, can you break it down to us? What is endometriosis?
Absolutely. So Whoopi Goldberg, Chrissy Teigen, Tia Mowry all have this in common. Endometriosis is a painful, horrible disorder in which the tissue that is within the lining of your uterus actually grows outside of your uterus and causes an incredibly painful syndrome. It usually affects your ovaries, fallopian tubes, and just lining the tissue of your pelvis itself. It's a problem for us in the Black community, not because we have such high numbers, but we are most likely misdiagnosed. So the reason that it even occurs in the first place is what they call retrograde menstrual flow. And so instead of blood flowing directly out of the uterus and through the vagina, it actually ends up backing up and flowing backwards, going towards the ovaries and the fallopian tubes and what have you, which is the problem. What you're going to find is that these are people that are going to complain of abdominal pain, pelvic pain, heavy periods, irregular periods, low back pain, fatigue, and often deal with issues with infertility. And so the problem here, like I said, it's about 10% of women worldwide. Okay. Black women have a lower chance of being diagnosed with this. And what I'm saying is it's not entirely that it is so significantly less common, but 40% of Black women that were told that they were actually told they had pelvic inflammatory disorder, which is chronic gonorrhea, chlamydia, and other STDs, when in actuality they had endometriosis. Okay, so Black women are more likely to be misdiagnosed with an STD, sexually transmitted disease, and be given just antibiotics and say deal with it, than actually having the workup that is required for them to learn more about the endometriosis and deal with that in itself.
And this is a condition that affects women. Corinna, one of our online culture crew members, she's one of our Friday panelists. She said, "I don't have endometriosis, thank God, but I recently had 8 fibroids removed. Mm-hmm. Men have no idea what women go through."
Yeah, it's layered over and over again. And I had someone today just saying that they were getting tired of all the layers of what being a woman is all about. And there is nothing worse than suffering with something that is so overwhelming and so confusing. And then to just be told, oh, you have a chronic STD and there's nothing we can do about it. Keep in mind that most of these STDs that I mentioned, if treated early, go away, God bless, right? However, if you have one of these conditions and it goes on for way too long, that's what pelvic inflammatory disease creates. And then the damage that it does to your pelvic organs cannot be undone. Okay. So that is why women coming in with all of this pain, doctors are saying, oh, you just have, chronic STDs, you have pelvic inflammatory disorder, instead of realizing that they have endometriosis, which there are a completely different array of treatment that goes along with that. And so, and this hits home for me in particular. I had a great friend from college who, through her life, was a virgin, was harassed every time she went into the ER because she had horrible pelvic pain. They would continue to tell her, oh, she would say, well, I'm a virgin. No, you have STDs. They were giving her antibiotics. And it was so overwhelming for her because no one would see and hear her. It turns out that she actually had endometriosis, gets married, has all these issues with infertility. And years was struggling with issues that really could have been addressed at a much younger age. A lot of these Black women that end up with endometriosis are not diagnosed until they are much older. And it's unfortunate.
Wow. So Sandy, you checked in, and I got a question. I got a question for you around this issue, Doc. But Sandy said that she had it and it changed her reproductive life. She said, if I hadn't had a capable Black doctor, I would be childless.
Yeah.
So a woman that has suffered from endometriosis is still able to reproduce, but there will be a process that you really do need a healthcare professional, someone that is able to identify it, that have a treatment plan for it, and then put you on a path where you can have a less painful reproductive life. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. I mean, the diagnosis is ultrasound. Even better is an MRI, which a lot of times because of cost, we are not offered. Okay. And then laparoscopic surgery to actually see what's going on there. And a lot of times we are not offered that either. And sometimes when we're offered that, we sometimes decline that because it is more invasive. But it is really, really an important part of understanding how to treat this and get to a better place as far as endometriosis. Instead of antibiotics, which you give for pelvic inflammatory disorder, the treatment is oral contraceptives. So many times estrogen, progesterone is given, whether to calm down the hormones that are there. A lot of times they're given, and they do that in different ways, progestins, hormone agonists, antagonists, different ways that's approached. But a lot of times they're given anti-inflammatories, Advil, Motrin, the ones that you're familiar with, but most likely we are given opioids. And basically we're given the opioids because of the severity of the pain, and we're sent along our way, which of course we already know the problem with chronic opioid use and addiction. The thing that came out most recently about this, though, that was of interest is that the uterus has an amazing amount of CB1 and CB2 receptors. These are the same receptors that are in our brain that connect to our endocannabinoid system, that when you're using whether CBD or THC, they connect with this. And when someone has endometriosis, they find that they have a decrease in the amount of those receptors. Keep in mind, THC, CBD decrease pain. You don't have these receptors in your uterus, you have more pain, right? And so another possible treatment option is CBD, maybe even cannabis, to help with this condition. And so, at the end of the day, my recommendation is if you are having pelvic pain, do not let anyone just tell you you have some STD that you never treated. do the right studies to find out. Do not be dismissed, whether it is the ultrasound, whether it's the MRI, whether you have to have a laparoscopic surgery to see what's going on. That might be what you need to feel better. So don't dismiss it. So make sure you get your testing. Be careful with opioid use, because even if whatever it is that we're talking about, opioids are not the only answer. And we know that ends up being, it is simply a Band-Aid that becomes a problem. So we do not want to overuse opioids by any means. And cannabis or CBD might be an option that you've never considered. And keep in mind, whatever you might think about cannabis, you don't have to smoke this. This might be a vaginal suppository that you're using to actually get the cannabinoids in there to calm down this area. It might be an oral capsule that you're using. It doesn't mean that you're sitting around smoking and getting high. I don't want to confuse people about what cannabis is as a medication. There's a lot of ways of using it that might actually be what you need to feel better. So advocate for yourself so that you can get the right diagnosis and, more importantly, the right treatment.
Look, we got to take another pause, Doc. But when we come back, I want to get your take on, how can men be a part of creating a supportive space, a supportive community for women, because I'm seeing a lot of my sisters from the crew who are saying like we're not doing enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially when women go through these changes, as girls become women, as it's just doesn't seem like there's enough, and there's still a lot of pushback on what the men can do, what the women should do. And so I want to kind of get your take on how do men create, how can we become more supportive of the women in our lives, especially women who are going through these changes with their bodies, with their reproductive systems, and this overall wellness. So love to get your take. Folks, continue to join us into the conversation. I'm seeing the chat. It's a robust chat that's happening right now on YouTube and, of course, on Facebook. And stay tuned. We got a lot more to cover. Plus, after today's conversation with the doc, I got to share something with you I saw on Twitter that disturbed me that I want to bring to your attention. So stay with us. We've got a lot more coming at you in the final few minutes of the culture here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been checking in with our doctor here, Dr. Bridget Williams, MD, for you Reclaim Your Wellness. And the doc is breaking us down, talking about endometriosis, a condition, a medical condition that affects women, their reproductive system, and has caused great and chronic pain to that part of the body. And I want to bring the doctor back into the frame because I want to, for all of the brothers and all the men that are listening, doc, as you're talking about this women's reproductive health issue, how can we become supportive of this? Because here's what Lori Parks, one of our online culture crew members, said. Lori said, "Cry me a river. No men won't be able to comprehend what a woman's body goes through. An OBGYN male doctor told me that he only knows it as a medical interest. He said the female body's anatomy is fascinating. So how do I do know that there are some, you know, male OBGYNs that see us as that. But for the men and the women and the lives of these women who go through these changes, who suffer from these medical conditions, how can we create a safe space for them? How do we be supportive?
Absolutely. So I will tell you, and I might be alone on this, so, you know, come with it if I am, but I am tired of the strong Black woman narrative. Tired. It is exhausting. Like, even when we're talking about endometriosis, it is a physical condition, but it becomes a mental fatigue condition as well, and all the mental issues that go along with infertility and chronic pain and, you know, what have you. And so I think we're incredibly good at playing the role of and we are strong, but that's so exhausting.
Right.
And so what I recommend to men is to be an ally. If you don't know, learn. If you can understand that this might be physically taxing, offer some sort of massage, heating pads, what have you, physically. Understand she might need to rest more than others. You know, the problem with some of these conditions that they're invisible. They're invisible to everybody around, but it is incredible. It's bigger than life for her, right? And so do not let this be invisible. Be that ally so it's not invisible to you as well. To understand that things might be more, to go for the walk if she needs to walk, be the support, provide the healthy diet, look and ask what she needs. Very independent women will not tell you, but if you invest and she can trust your interest and your support, she will share what she needs and be able to provide that.
Wow. So and let me just, there we go. I love that we can be more proactive. We can create the environment for her to share these things. And how much knowledge, like should we as men, brothers, fathers, uncles, grandfathers, should we be a part of those doctor visits?
Absolutely. You know, go to the visit, ask the questions, because when you're in it, when you're the patient, first of all, you walk out and you remember less than 10% of what was actually said. So you need an ally and that's documented research, right? So you need an ally there with the list of questions to be addressed. Everybody needs that when you're dealing with a difficult situation, 100%. Okay. So go to the doctor's visits and don't make this a hush hush topic. This is the same. When we're talking about the sexual assault, no one wants to talk about it. It goes unseen. Stop. We need to do better. We need to talk about what bothers us. We need to acknowledge those that are suffering and be of help to others.
Be a part of the doctor visits, ask questions, do your part to learn more about the condition that the woman in your life is going through. And more importantly, create a safe space at the home, or whenever you're around her, to be supportive of this condition. This is something. This is something, and I hate for it to be like men aren't, you know, critical thinkers, like we're just a bunch of, you know, we just beating on our chests and we don't have the capacity for this. But I think a lot of men feel powerless. You know it. You've been a family physician for years, Doc. You know, a lot of brothers who come into the doctor's, you know, office with the women in their life, whether it's their mother, sister, wife, girlfriend, we're like just sitting there. And I hope that we can change that culture, change that dynamic. Because I've been there, I've been sitting there, and I've thought, you know, okay, let me find out more about this. Okay, so this is the problem that she's having. Okay, let me, you know, just to be present, just to be in the moment of that situation.
Absolutely, figure out what is she, because if she probably has the same questions, and unfortunately, in this day and age, going to the physician, going to the office is can be nerve-wracking and intimidating. In a time where doctors knew their patients and patients really knew their doctors, it wasn't that intimidating. Build that relationship so that you can come in and ask the questions that you need to ask. What are you intimidated about? It is your time. It is your appointment. It is your body or your partner's friend, you know, loved one's body. There is nothing more important at that period of time, and there is not a stupid question on this planet. So do it. Communicate. We have to stop the silence that is literally killing us.
Especially when men, we benefit from the pleasure.
There you go. That's it. If nothing else motivates
you be like, oh, you want to disregard her and all her medical situation, all her hurt and pain. Be like, what about the pleasure?
Absolutely. I mean, the biggest part of this is incredibly painful sex and intercourse.
Ooh.
Invest in yourself if you see nothing else. Invest in yourself, right?
That's how you talk to a man. Talk to our interests. This will be in your best interest, sir.
Your best interest. Absolutely.
Invest in yourself. All right, Doc. Talk to us as we close out the segment, how folks can get in touch with you. And more importantly, is there going to be an after chat tonight?
Absolutely. So what I love to do is take the comments that we didn't get to address today here and on Facebook, and at 5:30 tonight at Eastern Standard Time, I will go on Instagram Live at Dr. Bridget MD, and it's a chance to continue the conversation with the after chat. So join me there. If you have other questions, you can always email me at info@drbridgetmd.com. But come on over to Instagram Live and let's continue this conversation. And you can ask me about any of the subjects that we've been talking about today or since we've started Reclaim Your Wellness.
There it is right there, folks. Dr. Bridget Cole Williams, MD, family physician, cannabis expert. And she's just been, I'm telling you, when I reach out to the doc, I'll be like, hey, doc, you know about this? She always said, yes, I know about that too. I'm like, geez, what does this woman know?
No, I appreciate it.
Qualified, and we're so happy to have her joining us on the conversation and being a part of the show weekly. So, Dr. Bridget, thank you again, sis, for all of your expertise and, of course, for being so good for the culture. And, folks, make sure y'all join her for the after chat tonight at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on her IG page. Dr. Bridget, thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I want to share with you something I saw on Instagram, on Twitter. I thought it was disturbing. Just want to bring it to our attention. So stick around for that here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All the momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back. Just very quickly before we end out the show, I was on Twitter earlier today, and I came across a tweet about history and more importantly, disrespecting our history. And I saw this video. Now, before we show this video, I want to just let you know, we really do have an attack on Black history and our culture. And that's why I put up today's message is the future is Black, folks. And I saw this because if we don't do something to protect our culture, to protect our history, to protect any type of remnant, any type of remembrance, any type of murals, or any type of artistic expression of our history, we're going to find ourselves in even a darker place. So I came across this video. This is a tweet that was put out by a brother who I follow him on Twitter, Philip Lewis. He is a senior editor for the Huffington Post. And take a look at the video that he posted here. Take a look at this, folks.
Why are you defacing the black history in the DC? Why are you defacing the black history in the DC?
All right, so here's the thing. This is a man who was captured spray painting over the Paul Robeson mural on DC's. This is in Washington D.C. on DC's U Street. The question is being asked, and this is a video that has gone viral. The question is being asked: why are you defacing Black history in DC? This is a picture. Keenan, can we show the before picture of the mural? If we have that, folks. Here's the thing, folks. The attack on Black history is so blatant that now you have people who are going into spaces where our history is being expressed. Take a look at the before picture of Paul Robeson, and then you got this joker spraying over it. Look, let me just tell y'all something, folks. We cannot allow this to happen. We can't allow this to happen. This man took spray paint over this beautiful mural of one of our great heroes to deface it to the extent of this. Now, some folks said I would have gone to violent means to deface him, right? But before we even get to that place, because I would not want to see any one of our people locked up for beating up on some joker. But there has to be something done. That if we're in a space and someone proceeds to deface some element or part of our history or some expression of our history, then we can't just allow that to happen without there being some sense of repercussion. You know what I mean? So I wanted to just throw this out there. And if you're in DC, you're on your U Street, I encourage us to not allow this to be a cultural thing where people can just go in and do whatever they want and deface this situation. So, you know, some people have said, well, why are we recording it instead of stopping it? And that's a good question. I understand that. I definitely understand that. Tiana, you said, why didn't anyone throw a rock at him? I mean, look, I don't know. There's something should be stopped. But right now, the face of Paul Robeson on U Street in Washington, D.C. has been defaced, has been vandalized. And we know the culprit. We see him on video, and he just doesn't give a damn. We must stop thinking that everyone cares, or that people don't have the they don't have the audacity to disrespect us and our history. We must protect our history. We must protect our expression of history at all costs, because this can't continue to happen. So it disturbed me. I wanted to share it with you just to see if we can at least, again, if you're in DC, if you're familiar with this guy, like, something needs to be done. But more importantly, we need to make sure that the mural of our brother Paul Robeson is replaced, or it's fixed, or whatever the case may be. Something has to be done in Washington, D.C. So I wanted to bring that to y'all, crew. And let me know. Y'all can follow me on my social media. Let me know what your thoughts are about this. You can follow me on my Twitter page at Farajii. And you can also follow me on my Instagram page at The Real Farajii as well. But we can't allow this to happen. And I would hate for it. DC, historic chocolate city, it may not be that way to a lot of people now. But the fact is, our history should not be erased right in front of our face. It just can't happen. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I want to thank my team, Joel. I want to thank my man, King Keenan. I want to thank the control room. And I want to thank Dr. Bridget. I want to thank my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols. Make sure you do your part here at the Black Star Network. Support us as we continue to do the great work of being a Black media institution. Go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Also follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And of course, we need your support, financial support, sharing the content, making sure that people understand the importance of having this space. You can do that right there at blackstarnetwork.com. Stay tuned. Up next is RMU, Roland Martin Unfiltered at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Folks, as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will have another great conversation tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Until then, talk to you soon. Peace.